The stars over Horizon 3 shimmered like polished glass, untouched and serene. The colony had always been quiet, a farming settlement with little more than crops, laughter, and the occasional mining survey. No military outposts, no weapons, just families, just children. 5 of them played near the edge of the central dome, where the artificial atmosphere met the fence, pretending they were pilots, explorers, heroes of some imaginary war they'd never see. Their parents watched from a distance, smiling, trading stories about Earth. Then the Empire arrived. A frigate broke orbit without warning. No broadcast, no authorization. The landing wasn't a descent, it was a statement. Engines screamed through the sky. Dirt exploded beneath the repulsors. Imperial soldiers in obsidian armor poured out like a flood, weapons already raised. Their commander, thin, scaled, cold, demanded submission under Galactic Ordinance 7-17A, suspicion of illegal resource acquisition and failure to register energy outputs. The colony's energy use had been steady for decades. Everyone knew this was manufactured. The adults complied. There were no weapons to resist with, no soldiers to fight. The children were ushered inside the dome, but that wasn't enough. The Empire wanted leverage. 5 kids, rounded up, held in an auxiliary transport. For questioning, they said. Procedure, they said. Mothers screamed. Fathers demanded reason. The commander gave none. The humans begged, pleaded. This was a misunderstanding. The commander smirked. Then they have nothing to fear. No one knows what happened in that transport bay. The records were scrubbed. The internal cameras malfunctioned. What came next was static, silence, and then the message, containment failure. 5 civilian juveniles deceased. Investigation closed. They didn't even send the bodies. Word spread fast. The human colony remained silent, too shocked to speak. A week passed. The Empire moved on. The rest of the galaxy shrugged. Unfortunate, some said. Tragic, said others. But no one would challenge the Empire. No one ever did. Earth's delegation filed a complaint to the Galactic Council. It was buried in bureaucracy. A diplomat from the Arakan Collective dismissed the incident. Perhaps humans should monitor their breeding more carefully, he joked. Laughter followed. But no one laughed on Horizon 3. The parents didn't hold funerals. There were no remains. Just ashes scattered in orbit. They didn't scream. They didn't rally. They didn't make noise. They simply disappeared. What the Empire failed to understand, what every other species in the galaxy failed to understand, is that humans don't process grief the same way. Other species collapse. Humans harden. One of the mothers, Elise Marin, hadn't been a farmer before Horizon 3. She had 3 Black Ops commendations and 2 SEAL dossiers under Earth Command. One of the fathers had once led a team through the methane storms of Titan with no backup. Another had been part of the first contact response team with the Drail. These weren't just parents. They were professionals, specialists, and now they were angry. But anger wasn't loud. Not for humans. It was quiet, slow, calculated. It didn't scream. It promised. The Galactic Empire thought they'd closed a file, buried a mistake, taught a lesson to a minor colony. What they'd really done, without realizing it, was declare war on 5 individuals with nothing left to lose and no reason to hold back. The galaxy would later call it disproportionate, brutal, savage. The Empire would call it terrorism. Others would call it justice. But for now, all was still. The comms across Horizon 3 went dark. The main dome lost connection to the outer relay. The orbital scanner shut down. Earth Command's last message received from the colony was simple. Just 6 words. The Empire believed the silence from Horizon 3 meant fear. That the parents had accepted their loss, filed their grief away like the rest of the galaxy. That humans were just another species too weak to fight back. They were wrong. The silence wasn't surrender. It was strategy. When the first Imperial officer turned up dead on the border world of Vin Kareth, no one noticed. A shuttle accident, they said. A systems malfunction. But the corpse had no burns. Only a neat slice across the throat and a data chip missing from his neural port. Then came the second, a logistics analyst stationed at a supply depot. He never checked in for his shift. Security footage was wiped. The only thing left behind was a handwritten note in an extinct Earth dialect. They were 5. You will count higher. By the 3rd, the Empire knew something was happening, but they didn't know who. No one had declared war. No one had made demands. No fleets moved. No worlds armed themselves. The enemy wasn't a nation. It was a whisper, a ripple in their perfect order, a human ripple. Earth officially denied involvement. Their diplomats gave sad looks and political shrugs. We lost children, they said. We grieve, but we follow protocol. That was the line, the lie. Behind that lie, the parents moved through the stars like phantoms. With them came others, volunteers, not soldiers in uniform, but engineers, hackers, smugglers. No flags, no chains of command, just shared purpose and quiet fury. They didn't need numbers. They had precision. They knew the Empire's tech, its blind spots, its arrogance. Human war doctrine had always been underestimated because it didn't rely on scale. It relied on psychology, unpredictability, leverage. The Empire moved like a hammer. The humans moved like a scalpel. Imperial media tried to suppress the incidents, but rumors escaped. On neutral planets, in back-alley ports, and forgotten satellites, people began to talk. Not of armies or invasions, but of something worse. Of humans who came without warning, who left nothing behind but dead officers and strange marks scorched into walls. 5 vertical lines, 1 crossed. The galaxy laughed at first. A myth, a revenge story. But the Empire wasn't laughing. They had started losing command nodes. Small, critical hubs, data caches, forward-planning cells, all quietly eliminated. And each time, it was those same 5 marks. One senator from the Zell Council mocked the humans publicly, calling them monkeys with grief. A week later, his cruiser vanished in warp. The signal from his emergency beacon was eventually recovered, repeating a single human phrase: "You will not forget them." The message was clear. The hunt wasn't for power. It wasn't about rebellion or conquest. It was about memory, about consequence, about reminding the galaxy that humans bury their dead, but not their anger. The Imperial High Command issued a warning to all captains. Increase security, scan for cloaked signals, report suspicious Terran movements. But it didn't matter. The humans didn't attack where defenses were strong. They didn't seek glory. They struck where pride lived, behind walls of privilege, arrogance, immunity. One of the parents, a former infiltration specialist, once told a training class, "If they think you can't reach them, you already have." That philosophy now echoed through every breach, every vanishing officer, every shattered chain of command. Some alien governments began whispering that maybe the humans had a point, that perhaps the Empire had gone too far, that this wasn't just retribution, it was a warning to them all. If 5 children could be taken without consequence, then who was safe? The Empire doubled down. Denials turned into threats. Sanctions were proposed against Earth. But even the Galactic Council hesitated, because behind closed doors, they weren't afraid of Earth. They were afraid of the parents. And the parents were just getting started. The attacks weren't revenge. They were statements. A language older than diplomacy. Not just retaliation, but evolution. Evidence that humans weren't what the galaxy thought they were. Not soft. Not governed. Not bound by bureaucracy. They were something else entirely. Something the stars hadn't seen in a very long time. Predators. With memory. And a message. The Empire called them terrorists. That label was supposed to make them easier to dismiss. But behind every security door, every emergency meeting, there was a single unspoken truth. They weren't fighting terrorists. They were being hunted by something far worse. The turning point came when the orbital base over Ellicor 9 went dark. No warning, no distress signal. The station controlled trade across 3 sectors. Gone in under an hour. When recovery teams finally reached the wreckage, they found every Imperial officer dead. Not vaporized, not gunned down in chaos. Executed, precisely, silently. No signs of struggle, no sign of entry. Only 5 marks on the command wall. And a message burned into the captain's console. Mercy is not coming. For the first time, fear spread through the Empire's ranks. Captains refused postings in the outer sectors. Families of officers quietly relocated. The illusion of invulnerability cracked. Then came the coordinated strikes. 13 supply depots sabotaged simultaneously. Warp gates disabled mid-jump, killing everyone on board. A high-ranking admiral's transport rerouted into a dead zone. When it was finally found, the hull had been breached from the inside. These weren't random acts. Each target had a documented connection to the original incident. Officers who signed the authorization. Judges who dismissed appeals. Administrators who sealed the files. One by one, they were erased. Human forces didn't claim responsibility. They didn't release propaganda. There were no manifestos. Just silence. In aftermath, the operations were surgical. Teams moved with perfect coordination. Civilian casualties were avoided. Alien witnesses were often left untouched, but not unmarked. They would find phrases carved into walls, devices, even their dreams after being fed data-suggestive implants. We remember, some aliens started evacuating Imperial-held systems, fearing the humans might strike again. Not cities, not worlds, just the ones in charge, the ones who thought power insulated them. A Drevik intelligence officer, once responsible for feeding data to the Empire, turned himself in to the human colonial embassy on Teresh. He brought a file with him. Every official who'd authorized the children's deaths. He didn't ask for protection. He just said, "Please don't make me next." The parents didn't stop. They weren't negotiating. They weren't seeking recognition. They had one goal: balance. Not the kind decided by courts, but the kind settled in blood. One of the targets tried to escape justice by going underground, changing identity, and hiding on a remote moon with triple security layers. He was found with his own oxygen line sealed, his last breath scratched onto the steel wall. You can't hide from grief. The Empire increased rewards for information. They placed bounties, launch patrols. None of it mattered. The humans weren't running. They didn't fear death. They had already faced the worst pain imaginable. Everything else was simple after that. The last known transmission from one of the parents, intercepted weeks later, was brief. "You took 5 lights from us. You will drown in the dark." And they made good on it. They didn't level planets. They didn't declare war. They dismantled systems. One critical piece at a time. Quietly. Completely. And each time, the Empire responded slower, with less confidence. Every move they made was shadowed by doubt. Every room held the question: are they already here? The attacks became legend. The 5 lines became a symbol. Even among alien populations, people began to whisper it as a warning. Hurt no human child. Ever. The galaxy finally began to understand. Humans didn't strike first. They warned. They waited. They asked for peace. But once the line was crossed, they didn't negotiate. They didn't compromise. They ended it. Not for revenge. For memory. For justice. For the promise made at 5 small graves that had no bodies. No mercy. The Empire finally paused. Not because it wanted peace, but because it no longer trusted its own defenses. Internal audits revealed that 2/3 of its outer command staff had either resigned, vanished, or refused to travel. Morale among mid-level officers collapsed. Civilian unrest boiled beneath polished cities. Fear no longer came from rebel factions or hostile worlds. It came from a silence before the next name vanished. The High Council convened in secret. They reviewed the list of the dead. None were battlefield losses. All were bureaucrats, functionaries, judges, captains. People who never expected war to reach them. And the common thread was unmistakable: involvement in Horizon 3. 5 children, 5 lives, 5 detonations in the foundations of the Empire. Proposals were made. Offer Earth reparations. Blame rogue elements. Begin peace talks. But no consensus came. Every option assumed one fatal mistake: that the humans could still be reasoned with. That diplomacy would matter to people who had buried their children without a trace of justice. Earth remained officially silent. Its fleets stayed in their sectors. No mobilization, no threats. Only quiet, clinical statements disavowing violence while doing nothing to stop it. And still, the strikes continued. Then, without warning, they stopped. No more disappearances. No more messages. No more bodies. Just stillness. The Empire didn't celebrate. It didn't believe in miracles. It feared what silence meant now. Rumors surfaced. The five had finished. The list was complete. Some whispered they had returned to Horizon. 3 to reclaim whatever lives they had left. Others believed they were still out there, watching, waiting for the next offense. Alien species across the fringe systems began drafting new laws. Crimes against human civilians, particularly children, now carried automatic protective oversight. Not by law, by fear. Entire councils invoked preventative protocols not to anger Earth, but to avoid drawing the attention of those 5 marks. A trading hub on Varkas, 7 once posted a joke sign. No humans harmed here. Please don't kill us. 2 days later, the sign was replaced with a carved plaque that read simply, "You listened." That's enough. The message had been delivered. The war was never about domination. It wasn't about destruction. It was about making the most powerful entity in the galaxy understand one thing: that humanity, for all its diplomacy and restraint, had limits. The Galactic Council reconvened to redefine interspecies engagement laws. Human diplomats were given new levels of autonomy in frontier zones. The phrase, "no mercy," was no longer just human. It had entered the lexicon of the stars. Young officers now study the Horizon protocols, named unofficially after the colony. They are taught that power means nothing if you provoke a species with nothing left to lose. That pain, for humans, is not an endpoint. It's ignition. The last public monument erected on Horizon 3 is small, unadorned. 5 stones, each marked with a name. Beneath them, the inscription, "We asked for peace. You answered in blood. So did we." The children are gone, but they were never forgotten. Not by their parents. Not by Earth. Not by the Empire, which still carries the scars. The galaxy learned, not through treaties, but through consequence. A lesson burned into systems, broadcast in silence. Humans don't ask twice. They don't warn 3 times. And when the line is crossed, they don't seek balance. They deliver it.